You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy network.
Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I'm speaking with Jayne Clarke around HEMS success stories from a UK perspective. So what I wanted to do really in the episode is really examine one of the most seminal HEMS services globally, really, that of London's Air Ambulance charity. But what I wanted to do is really just look at a different aspect of HEMS work, certainly from a UK context, that of the lesser known aspects of sustaining and developing a leading HEMS service, both financially and from a charity perspective. So we examined the community engagement strategies and also the fundraising and marketing campaigns required to generate over £16 million of funding for 2 new helicopters within London. We also explore the behind-the-scenes efforts that was brought about to really procure these helicopters and put them into service, and also the challenges that the charity faces on a daily basis. Also the crucial role that the public plays in supporting London's Air Ambulance in its mission on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. So to do this, we have Jayne Clarke with us. Jayne is the Director of Fundraising Marketing at London's Air Ambulance charity. She brings a wealth of experience from her past, really, from her strategic leadership from the charity sector. She has background in marketing and advertisement, worked with McCann World Group and other agencies before shifting into ethical banking. So her passion for purpose-driven work led her to the RNLI, where she led major campaigns, media relations and corporate partnerships. So she later served as the Director of Income Generation at St Peter's Hospice before consulting for various charities. Jayne is now driving London's Air Ambulance charity into a new chapter of growth in 2025. So please just join us as we really examine maybe the lesser known aspects of running an air ambulance charity within a UK context and some of the challenges that they face.
So Jayne, I just wondered if you could start by giving our listeners just an overview of London's Air Ambulance charity and indeed its mission.
Of course. So London's Air Ambulance charity is the charity that powers London HEMS. The HEMS service is a tripartite between Barts Healthcare, London's Ambulance Service and us as a charity. And what we basically provide is all of the logistics for HEMS in London to be able to operate. And so, but putting that really simply, that's the helicopters, that's the cars, that's the kit, that's the all the logistics and things that you need to run the HEMS service in London. So we are a charity that provides the power behind the service, basically. And we have been running for 36 years. And it costs us now almost £20 million a year now to run the service. And we are so proud that we are powered by London. And it's Londoners, everyday Londoners, that provide the donations and the money and the ambassadorship and the support for us that enable us to have that service.
And could I get you to speak to just this, really the importance and significance of new helicopters? What kind of impact do sort of securing new helicopters really have on the overall mission and capabilities of London's Air Ambulance?
Well, it's huge. Basically, without the new helicopters, we wouldn't be an air ambulance. We would just be using cars. So the 2 helicopters that we had were absolutely great. Great bits of kit, but one of them was 25 years old and one of them are 15 years old. And it's like an old car, the parts becoming increasingly hard to find. They spend a lot longer having services. Maintenance was much more tricky, and so they had literally run the end of their life for them to be able to be used here in the UK, because that particular model couldn't be serviced here in the UK, and they were just getting far too old. So it really was the case of having a helicopter or not, because we wouldn't be able to continue flying those helicopters over London. So we decided 3 years ago that we really needed to go out and ask London to provide the support for us to be able to buy the two new incredible Airbus 135s that we are now flying across London every day.
No, indeed. And Jayne, partly one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you really was just maybe uncovering the lesser known aspects of running a HEMS service within the UK context. Could I get you to speak to, because there's been a huge amount of fundraising efforts in the background to ensure the acquisition of these helicopters. Could I get you to speak to some of the key elements of the campaigns that really have made it a successful acquisition of 2 new helicopters?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the biggest things that we need to do as a charity is to let people understand that we are a charity. They see the red helicopters flying across London every day, and I think most people would assume, well, we know most people assume that they are either provided by the government, they're provided by the ambulance service, or they're provided by our NHS. And they're not. They're funded by Londoners for Londoners. So that's one of the biggest sort of hurdles that we always have to get over, is to explain to people that the service is only able to run by people supporting us in a charitable way. And that's very different from lots of other services around the world, I know, and it's particularly quite unique for the UK that they are really charity funded. If we didn't have the charity behind them, they wouldn't, the service simply wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be funded centrally. So the biggest task is making sure people understand that, and telling people that they know that they know that we're a charity and that we need support. The second part of it then is making sure people really understand what we do in London, how HEMS are different from in London than it is from anywhere else regionally in the UK. And we have 26 air ambulances in the UK. And try to explain to them and let them know that what we do is so different and so vital. And the number of people that we go out to every day, it's 5 people every day in London sadly need our services, and it's vital that we're there, because if we weren't there, those people would really have a very low chance of survival. So once we explain that, and we explain what we do and how our model is very different, in terms that we always fly a consultant and a doctor, a trauma paramedic to scene using these helicopters, we can get anywhere in London within 11 minutes. And then what we do when we get to scene is very different from what other people might understand an air ambulance does, especially in the UK, which is much more some flying to a scene, picking people up and taking them back to hospital. But obviously what we do is different. We take the A&E and take all of the equipment to the scene that we would do, that they would have in the emergency room or the A&E. And then you have to convince people that this is a good organisation for them to fund. And that is anything from shaking a bucket outside a tube station where somebody might pop in £5 to convincing an organisation, a trust organisation, to donate £3 million.
Yeah, indeed. And let's dig into that actually, Jayne, because again, part of this conversation really is understanding the nuances of engagement with the community, because it is so varied, and there is almost lots of different initiatives that engage the community, just to, like you said, unpack maybe some of the unknowns and also the relevance. Could I get you to speak to the community involvement? Because, you know, there's, albeit fun runs or marathon runs or abseiling and various ways in which you can engage the community, but also just crucial because it includes their support, which is a vital component of operations. Could I get you to really speak to some of these initiatives that really bring the community alongside London HEMS?
Absolutely. I mean, it starts with an army of volunteers that we have. So we have a lot of volunteers who work for us. They will do anything from going out and speaking to a local golf club about what we do, or speaking to a school about what we do, to standing outside a supermarket all day in the rain, shaking a bucket and raising £250, which is phenomenal. So it starts with them. Then we have a schools program. So we have people who do go out to schools and different sort of youth groups and talk about what we do. That's two-sided. That's so people can understand that we're a charity. We can get people interested and knowledgeable about what we do. But also we're really proud that we are also promoting STEM in schools. And so young children can sort of see it as an aspirational career, with all the different elements that we do, from aviation to clinical to fundraising or whatever. So that's quite root cause or start of what we do. We also have lots of Londoners, so 125, I think, 1,000 Londoners now donate between £8 and £10 a month to us. It's a direct debit. It's almost like an insurance policy, but it's their way of supporting us in a monthly way, and that raises huge amounts of money for us, and it's part of building that really big community. So it's literally somebody either shaking a bucket or just doing that monthly direct debit to us brings us a huge amount of money. But then when we have things like the helicopters, or big capital appeal of big ticket items that we need to raise a substantial amount of money for, then that's a different level of engagement. That's talking to corporates, it's talking to different businesses, small and large businesses in London. It's talking to trusts and foundations and family foundations. And that's a lot, not more difficult, but it's a longer story. You have to really involve people in them. You have to bring them in like they're a family member to you, so they understand how you run, how you work, the nuances of running an aviation service in central London, what the clinicians do and how the clinicians work. and get to really become part of our family, and then they will understand us and know about us, and that's where then we get bigger donations and bigger support. So we're £1 million from a certain trust up to £3 million from the London Freemasons. So it's a whole wealth of conversations and engagements and stewardship and bringing people in on a different level. So they understand us and they become part of our community. I think once people understand who we are and what we do and the difference that we make to so many thousands of people's lives in London, then they do want to become involved and they want to become part of our family. And that's really, really important for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, there's a real link there between contribution, and they can see hopefully the effects of their contributions on a larger scale. And that kind of leads me nicely, actually, Jayne, into just some of the other ways in which you engage the community. One of the fantastic ways, and I'd like maybe to get your thoughts on this, is how you display data to the public. So, the semblance of infographics, monthly infographics around calls attended, locations of calls, the service provision. But I guess in a way, it's maintaining transparency with donors and stakeholders, but also innovating them with these monthly infographics and display of data. Could I get you to speak to that? Because I guess in a way, providing accessible data to the public, which is almost easily consumed, allows them to understand the fruition of their giving.
Exactly, and it's part of that journey of them being part of our family, so they can see and they know how many jobs that we're going to every day, how many jobs we're going to in the last month, how many patients we've seen overall, and then also then understanding in their locality, really bringing it down to their locality. And when we speak to different people in different areas, we can say last year we went to 50 people in your area, 50, and that's 50 families affected, 50 colleagues that are affected just in your area every year. So it's part of informing people and telling them what we're doing, and it is that real transparency. And I think we're very lucky as a charity that we're very visual, we're very there, we're very open about what we do, because we are landing and flying over London and driving around London every day. But we also have these real tangible stats of saying, without your support, this many people, this many families, this many friendship groups could have potentially lost somebody. And that really brings it home, and that hopefully resonates with people about why they support us, because they want to know that where their money is going. And it might be £8 a month, or it might be £3 million, but they want to be able to see where their money is going and see that real tangibility of it. And that's also where we tell the stories of our patients, and we're very fortunate that we have patients who are willing to tell their story, and they've had possibly the worst day of their life, and then they're happy to talk to us about it, sometimes in person, sometimes just through telling the story and us publishing it. But that's also really important, because that's that real connection, especially from a charity point of view, that you can see a dad that was out running that was knocked over by a car, or a mother who was on her way home and slipped under the tube. And you can see those stories and think, goodness, that could have been me, that could have been my wife, that could have been my dad, that could have been my son, or whatever. That's also really important. I don't really want to necessarily call it storytelling, because I don't want to trivialize it for the patients, but it's really giving that impact is what people definitely do connect to. And that's also really important. So it's putting the story behind the number of patients, the pure facts of 2,000 patients a year, to actually it's people like Dave or people like Sarah that we are going out to, that real human side. And that's part of the charity role, is to make sure people really understand that.
Yeah, listen, I couldn't agree with you more, actually, Jayne. And I think the more time I spend in various roles, really, the more I see the voice of the customer, or indeed the voice of the patient, really, in this respect, is powerful, because, as you said, it connects the public to the charity, but it also, in a way, vicariously connects clinicians to the charity, because I think we all join up as paramedics, doctors, nurses into the medical industry and medical careers for this very reason, for the reason of patients, and actually telling those, like you said, patient stories actually brings you back to the horizon of why you joined the job in the first place. So I think it almost serves two purposes. It connects the community, but it also connects the clinicians. And I think that is a powerful symbiotic way in which you can, like you said, hang data. It frames data to bring it back to a very real world context, really. And I guess in a way as well, one thing I really love about what you guys have done is really harness that on a national level with the BBC and ITV and other media news channels to really almost amplify those good news stories. Could I get you to speak to how you've amplified that to resonate with both, I guess, community and clinician?
I think we have a good story to tell, and we have a very it's a very clear story that without our service, many people that we are able to go to wouldn't be around to be with their family, wouldn't be able to to continue their lives. And obviously, we don't save everybody. We always, our promise is to give that patient the best outcome that's possibly best for them and their families. And I think that because of that, and because we are able to tell those stories and people can resonate with them, the media is very happy to work with us, and we have very good relationships with the BBC and with ITV here in the UK. That we can feed them stories, we could tell them what we're doing, and they're interested in it. And that's really important to us to get those stories out on behalf of the clinicians, because I think one of the most important things for us as a charity is we take donors' money and we put it into the service, and that provides this that provides the service, and that provides the great outcomes that we have. We're just a conduit. The charity is just the conduit. So if we can use the media to get more people to understand what we do and the outcomes, that's really, really important. And it's really important for the clinicians as well, when they see the impact of what they're doing, being able to be publicised and out in the media. We feel it's really important to them. I mean, they probably wouldn't want to blow their own trumpet, but it's really important that we tell those stories. And we're lucky that the media really wants to work with us, and they're very kind, and they're very understanding of the intricacies of a HEMS service and how you can publicise that and how you can put that onto mainstream broadcast. But they work really well with us, and I think we're very, very fortunate in that we have clinicians that allow us to tell those stories. We have patients that allow us to tell those stories, and people who want to listen and pick them up. It's incredible. We're very, very lucky.
Yeah, indeed. Jayne, could I just pivot for a minute and just really look at the future in 2025? What's really next for the charity? Are there any sort of projects or goals in the pipeline that you are really putting effort behind to really, I guess, bring to fruition or be consistent within 2025 to keep that engagement and indeed keep that investment with and link between the charity and the community?
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't rested on our laurels. We've got the helicopters in, and we are just about to publish our next strategy, which actually is a 15-year vision. So in 15 years or 14 years now, HEMS in London will be 50 years old. So we wanted to work through, what does that mean? Who are we? What is HEMS going to look like in 15 years' time? Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know all the intricacies. But where do we want to take the organisation and the charity in that time? And the key focus of that is about bringing hope to London. It's about changing how we can help London. So we've got the logistics now sort of ticked off on the checklist. We've got the helicopters, we've got cars, we've got a great helipad, we've got the support of BARTS and London's ambulance service. So we've got all the kit that we need. We have to keep that running. But what's the next thing? And I think when we thought about it, we go back to why the organisation was set up in the first place, why those incredible pioneering clinicians made a decision very bravely and with lots of sort of pushback to be able to get clinicians to a scene quickly, so they can get to the patients in that really short time that make a massive difference when they've had that traumatic injury. And I think it came from consultants being in the emergency department and the A&E, seeing patients that were coming in and saying, if we had got to them earlier, we would be able to do something different. The outcome would be different. So we've kind of ticked off the getting there earlier. And the next piece is now looking at what they're going to do when they get to scene. And London's Air Ambulance, we are incredibly proud that we are really pioneering and do a lot of trials and lots of work, world leading work into what we can do when we get to scene. We have a volume in London of people, unfortunately, who have traumatic injury. We can get to them quickly now because we're a small space and we've got a quick mode of transport. So every clinician is now looking to say, what can we do differently? One clinician said it really beautifully, is when you are on scene, you're always looking at how you can save the patient tomorrow that you couldn't save today. And so looking at what interventions can they do that's different, whether it's Roboa or ECMO or any of the trials that we're doing. What can they do? What can we learn from that scene? What can we research? What can we innovate? How can we change that person wouldn't be able to get there today, or the outcome, make it today, the outcome wasn't what they wanted? What's the next bit of innovation and intervention that we could do that's differently? So looking forward, we're really looking at the different things that we can do when we get to scene that's going to make the difference, and doing real research functions, getting research fellows working for us, really getting some trials in place from the different places around the world. People come to us and use our services to test different ways of treating a patient. And so that's our real sort of vision now, is to say, right, okay, we're getting there quickly, we're doing everything that we can. What's the next things that we're going to do to make that patient survive that couldn't survive today? So it's really changing, sort of, it's not just about the speed, it's not just about the logistics, it's actually what we do there every day. And we've been doing that for the last 36 years, and we'll always continue to do that, but we're really putting a lot of focus and a lot of money into that as well. Our next, looking forward, it's going to cost us probably £20 million to run the service, because we really want to invest in that research and those innovations and those pilots and then that training. And then once we've learned these things, then we want to take on the responsibility of training. It's going to sound glib, training the world, but allowing people to come and learn from what we're doing here is a really big part of our next piece of vision. So yeah, that's where we are. It's really exciting times for us. It's a really exciting times for the clinicians, that we're really investing in them and their thinking and what they want to do next steps. And because we're a charity, we're able to do that. We're able to say, yeah, we will create the environment where you can do this.
Oh, listen, I fundamentally agree with that, actually, Jayne. And I think there is just London HEMS for me, and the more time I spend in the global HEMS market, I really understand that London HEMS is a benchmark service that actually, like you said, it's almost a reference service that other clinicians can move in and out of, and then take innovation back to their own services. So there's a super important relationship, like you said, over time, but also from a multinational perspective, because there's a lot of knowledge translation which comes out of London HEMS, which is almost supplanted into different HEMS services and taken with them. So there is this, and you also hit the nail on the head there, where you said there's this constant iteration, constant improvement, constant striving for a betterment of the patient, and not being satisfied where we are today, but constantly driving forward. And I think that's a powerful reframer, actually, Jayne. Could I get you to speak to, just as we're starting to come into land on the conversation, could I get you to speak to, because there is other HEMS charities within the UK context which are looking to leverage all aspects of relationship to really make sure that the public and clinicians are fully aware, fully aligned with the mission of their local HEMS service. Could I get you to speak to maybe some take-home messages that you could speak to other services just that want to optimize their reach, their effect, maybe their service delivery from these multimodal, like almost like a lottery, or like community engagement, all this stuff? Could I get you to speak to this, to some sort of salient take-home messages?
From a charity point of view, yes. Obviously not from a clinical point of view at all.
Indeed.
From the charity point of view, yes, I can. And I think, but I don't. London is different, and London is different because of where it is, and who, the size of the population that we look after, and the diversity of the population that we look after. So I don't want to sound like that are my take homes of how I think everybody else should do it, because lots of other air ambulances around the UK are incredibly successful in their fundraising. They will have a different model to us. They will probably be more on community fundraising, or they might have a bigger legacy program. So we just have a different blend here in London because we have different opportunities and also different challenges. So it's hard for me just to say this is what I think would work, because it wouldn't work in different organisations, different even our local sort of neighbouring air ambulances. But I think everybody knows you just have to engage with your community. You have to be able to tell those stories. You have to have that connection. You also have to forget that you're just the conduit. The charity is just the conduit. So you can't forget that and not become too important about being the charity, and just make sure you're connecting donors with the outcomes, because that's what they give you the money for. And I think that's probably it, really. I think that we do things very differently in London because we can and we could, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way for everybody.
Like you said, it's maybe tried and tested within London, but I think you're right. The community is very different in different parts of the UK even, and so I guess, like you said, different community strategies will work in different areas. And like you said, it's the charity fundamentally is there to support the clinical operations. But I think one of the things I'm really understanding and realizing is something you said actually, Jayne, is, exemplifying and almost increasing the voice of the patient, because I think what that does is that helps public and clinicians understand of why we turn up to work every day. And I think London's Air Ambulance Charity has done a great job at that, bringing that to the forefront of why we all give and indeed support the charity. So I think it's been fantastic to see, and partly as well, Jayne, and maybe we could finish on this, is just how you have achieved such, over 14 million pounds worth of charitable giving to fully pay off these 2 helicopters. That's not an insignificant amount of money over a short period of time, and it's taken this, like you said, a multilateral, multifaceted relationship with various parts of the community to get to that. Could it just finally get you to speak to that journey, because there's probably been pinch points and pressure points in that journey, but you've come to that outcome, and it's a fantastic outcome. Could I maybe just get you to give us a bit of transparency into that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually in the end raised 16 million, which was absolutely phenomenal. And it was a real roller coaster. I think doing a capital appeal it is always a roller coaster. It's always something that you try to apply science to, but I had to keep saying this to my trustees. Fundraising, there is an element of science to it, but it isn't a science. It's not either just a numbers game. It's a relationship game. It's a timing game. It's a storytelling game. And you have to make sure that you get that right to all of your different audiences. So we started 2.5 years ago, and we actually had to sign the deal on the helicopters when we only had raised 900,000. I say only, we'd only had 900,000 in the bank to pay for them. So we knew that we had 2 years to pay to get that money in to pay for them. And we have to look at a really broad spectrum of how you would get that money in. And when you do a capital appeal, you know that you have to get some big tickets money in to start, because it's almost like a nudge theory that once you've got that cornerstone in, then people will kind of say, right, other people are on the bus. I'm happy to get on this bus. It's sort of the endorsement of it. So we worked really hard to get the cornerstone in, and we were very lucky that the London Freemasons came in and pledged 3 million, and they actually gave us 3.1 million in the end, which they fundraised for us, which was phenomenal. But that was the start. So then we sort of had 3.9 million, and then we looked at who else we would build. And it's network building. It's talking to so many people. It's using ambassadors and networking volunteers who are CEOs of large banks in London, down to people who, as I said earlier, were going to speak at golf clubs, but just go and talk to different people. And then now we'd open the door. And then we know we needed to get more sort of bigger £1 million donations in. So we will work very closely with different foundations and different trusts and how to do that. Then we had very lucky that we have two large galas. We're very lucky again that our patron is Prince William, and Prince William is an incredible patron on so many different levels, because he was an air ambulance pilot. So he totally understands us and what we do. He also is obviously a great ambassador for us. He's great forefront for us. It's also excellent when he comes to our galas, because it means that we were, the day after our gala, we were on the front page of 7 of the UK's national newspapers. That causes a massive groundswell of people contacting us as well. Again, we mentioned the media earlier. We were very lucky that the BBC filmed the 6:30 news slot up at the helipad, which covered the whole details of what we did as an organisation. And we know, we can track back, and we've spoken to the donors, that we did receive £1.5 million from 2 donors because they saw that news piece. So all of that, sort of the bigger stuff is happening, but also in the background, we're talking to many other different trusts and foundations about some of the smaller levels of giving, and it all then added up. We were also then very lucky to get an Amaze House, which is a very UK-centric charitable offering, and we received £4 million from that, and that's what took us over the line. So it's not a science, and I say, but then we had an awful lot of spreadsheets in the background of working out where we thought that money was going to come from, and who we needed to talk to leverage the money. So there is that element of science behind it, but also it's stars aligning. And I will say something, we were lucky. In some instances, we were very lucky, but then somebody will say, well, you make your own luck. We had a whole team of people who were dedicated to do this over 2 years, who had the stories to tell, who had the facts and figures, the difference it was going to make. We had the visual story of the helicopters being built, so we could very much tell London and tell our supporters of where they were and what was happening in it, and take them on that journey with us. And that made a huge amount of difference. We know that were people really felt that they were part of the family because of that. And so it's a huge mix. It is a huge mix of things that brought that money in, and it's a huge amount of work. And there were times when we didn't think we were going to get there, and there were times where we celebrated the wins, and you sort of have to commiserate the losses, where you think you've worked with somebody and you're going to get a big donation, a 6 or 7 figure donation, and the money goes elsewhere. We also, as we were going through the campaign, we had the Ukraine war, and we had all the atrocities happening in Gaza as well, and that redirected money out of London into those, understandably. And so you have to sort of work through that as well, that donors you thought were going to donate will then have to reallocate their money to somewhere else that they feel is right, and that happens. Of course it does. So it's just sort of always changing, always pivoting, always looking at how you can change things, listening to your donors, what's resonating with them, what's not resonating with them, and telling the story and banging the drum is basically the journey that we went on in the last 2.5 years, and that's everyone across the charity. That's clinicians. I mean, clinicians played a huge role in speaking to donors. Huge role at really telling that story, down to the fundraising teams and our volunteers and the trustees, and everybody got involved. Everybody, fire crew, everybody got involved in telling the story. So we were very lucky, and we smashed it, which I'm very, very proud of the organisation for. Really, really proud.
No, like you said, it was an absolute team effort, and just it's an amazing story to tell, actually, Jayne. And just listening to, like you said, the journey is fascinating, actually. Listen, thank you for the last half an hour. It's fantastic just to get your anecdotal experience and navigating what was absolutely a roller coaster ride of well-intentioned and well executed, but also a mix of luck and various other aspects. And it's just fantastic just to get your thoughts on that, and really also just reflect the UK context, because it really is quite different from the European model, from the Asia Pacific model, and indeed from the Australasian model. So it's fantastic just to get the nuances and the implementation of strategy from yourself, because it really is a unique ecosystem within the UK. So it's fascinating. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for thinking of us, and thank you for letting me tell the story. It's been an incredible journey.
You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy Network.